Welcome back, and you're still watching The Morning Breeze. It's the topical discussion. My name is Simon Kagwanjala. Well, the discussion around COVID-19 continues globally. It's a pandemic with different facets. People are looking at health, we're looking at the social aspects, and this morning our target is on the economic aspects. How much toll has it had on Uganda's economy, given that fear has engulfed the country, prompting government to impose a few regulations here and there that has grossly affected businesses? But how best can we assess the amount of damage, the extent of damage? What lessons do we pick from this, and how do we move out of the current catastrophe without necessarily having a complete meltdown? I'm joined this morning by Jane Nalunga. She's a trade policy analyst from Siatini, alongside Francis Ntaganza, an economist and CEO, CRIF Group, among several other businesses that he pursues. A very good morning. No handshakes, a very good morning.
Good morning.
Well, these are very delicate moments for the country. And you've already had quite a number of appeals from the business community, including the call for rescheduling of loans and lots of other pleas. How do we draw parameters when discussing the economy in the face of the coronavirus pandemic?
Okay, thank you so much for that question, and good morning, viewers. Indeed, it's really important that we look at this pandemic from the economic point of view, because the economy is under crisis, and we are not starting from a very good position. Already our economy was shaky. We have a trade deficit. We are running a trade deficit in that we are importing more than we are exporting. We are consuming as a country more than we are generating our revenue, and that's why we have a high indebtedness. In 2018, 2019, for every 5 shillings which were collected, 1 goes to servicing that debt. So the economy is shaky. And this virus will make it more harder, to recover.
So our vulnerability is high.
It's very, very high as a country. And I think we need to start from there. But for me, I'm hopeful, because our country, our economy is very resilient, because we need to separate the traders who get things from China, and it has really hit them very, very hard. But then we also have the producers within, people trading in the markets. We have the informal sector, which is also hit hard, because basically also our economy is in a way still at the hunters and gatherers, stage. Husband goes out to look for money, to put maybe food on the money on Kameza. So all those things that we are going to be hit hard. But for me, what consoles me when it comes to our economy is that we have the food. We have the food, and we can start from there. But we discuss the lessons to learn and how we should move forward.
Well, thank you very much. Francis, how best do we develop an outlook on the economy in the midst of this pandemic?
I think let me first say that I want to commend the government for the measures they've taken, the directives that have come from the president. Health comes first. You need a healthy population. Then we can discuss economy. So going forward anyway, regarding the economy, is we need to understand the economy in terms of GDP. So when you're calculating GDP, you look at so many parameters. 1, consumption, domestic, investment, you buying a house, for example. You need to look at government expenditure, what they're spending on roads, Then you look at net exports. So that is your exports minus imports. Then you get the general outlook of the economy. Now, if you look at consumption today, the consumer trends are going to, change, because all of a sudden, whatever I need to survive through this pandemic, I'm holding on to it because I spend on essential, on the basic need that I need. Then two, you look at an example like Serena Hotel. The other day, their CEO was saying, just the Kampala branch, Chigo had $400,000 worth of, bookings cancelled. 700,000 Serena Central cancelled. Okay? So he has no income, but he has to pay salaries. He has to pay electricity, water, because even if you have one guest, you don't just switch on the bulb in one room. There's a lot that it takes to make that guest comfortable, from ACs to cleaning to, a lot, to security. So now events have been cancelled at Serena, for example. So all the guys who are the informal guys who come in to put up drawers, set up the room, all those people, the guys who come and loan the grass, all are gone. They are not earning, they are poor, they are not spending. Now, because they're not spending, me in the supermarket, I'm stuck with product people can't buy. Then I will not order it from Nancy Kombi down in Charusowe, who had the contract to supply tomatoes daily or to bring honey to the shelf daily. She can't bring. So she also doesn't have income to pay the farmers. So it is a ripple effect. So the consumption trend is going to dip significantly. Then you go to the investments. You're not going to be able to afford a house. You can't afford the interest on your mortgage. So you can't take out a loan because you don't have an income.
Such a situation is not unique to Uganda.
Yes.
The entire world has been hit. But what is so unique about Uganda that we should be looking at?
What is so unique about Uganda is that we have a very high debt. So government needs to start thinking and sit down with Africa Development Bank, IMF, World Bank, on how they can come up with facilities to best help the Ministry of Finance going forward afford its debt obligations. Very important. Because we import, as you heard, more than we export. So we are very highly indebted, and if the tax base is going to go down, the collections are going to be hit. 44% imports already are gone. People are not bringing in. The traders, the usual trader in Chikoro. So the government now needs to think at a fiscal level, how are we going to help businesses survive and ourselves as government survive through this, so that tomorrow we can afford wages for public servants, we can afford to pay contractors who are working on the roads, So they need to start thinking on how they are going to do it. How? I do not know, because you have to really think for the people in finance. They have very few fiscal tools to fight this, because I doubt if they can afford it.
It's catch-22 for them.
For me, I see a silver lining, because each cloud has a silver lining. And I see some opportunities, For example, look at our trade with China. The imports, what we have been bringing in. And maybe this is that time to be able to ask, what are the imports? What have we been bringing in? Do we want it or do we need it? Just look at the imports, not just from China, from everywhere. So we need to ask, can we make it? You go to the supermarkets, even tomato, you have been, Francis, talking about tomatoes. Even the tomato sauce.
They're from South Africa.
We import tomato sauce. Why? Why shouldn't we add value? What does Makerere has a food science technology? Can't we teach our people to make tomato sauce so that what's on our shelves is what we make? And this can help because we are going to have a glut on the market. People are not buying the tomatoes, people have no money. So the tomatoes are going to erode. Why should they erode when on the shelves we have tomato sauce from outside?
Do you imagine the country has such a time to rethink and redraw the strategies? We can only have such a discussion post-disaster.
Yeah, because you see, if you don't learn from your misfortunes, then you have lost out. We need to learn from this misfortune. What should we do differently? Let me give you an example. Africa as a whole, we don't trade with each other. we trade with outsiders. Our trade with each other is just 17%. Asia trades among themselves 59, almost 60%. Europe, almost 70% internally. But for us, we are trading all over with other people instead of with each other. We need to change that. There has been a talk around import substitution. There are things which we can do here. Why should we get them from elsewhere? So this is the rethink. You see all the drinks, I won't name the drinks on this market, where they mix just you are from the medical Francis, you know that. They just mix that cola, and you say, oh God.
But you see, Jen, we're speaking about critical imports. We can have the conversation of import substitution post the crisis.
Exactly. But
right now, we're speaking of critical imports.
Like which
I'll
one?
tell you, the roofing companies or the steel companies, they need to import billets. Very few cement factories, maybe 2, him and Tororo, are on limestone. They need to import clinker. Go to Kampala Cement. Almost all the factories here, they have to bring in their spare parts, their raw materials from China, from India, which is closed.
This is what I'm saying. Today we have a crisis,
Agreed.
There is nothing we can do about what's coming from China. But tomorrow after the crisis, why don't we sit and start interrogating one product per product?
So you're looking beyond the crisis. But for now, the outcry is more to do with tax holidays, waivers.
Today, waivers, we can talk about that, But again, it goes back to what Francis was also saying and what you said about the vulnerability of our economy, of our fiscal policy. Other countries, for example, US, they were telling us they're giving $1,000. Can we afford that? We can't. For me, what we have is food. How do we make sure that we weather? We be able to ensure that people protect themselves, but they have the food. And we weather. We don't have to build houses for the next 30 days or 40 days. We can afford to wait to build that. If you have your Kalina, you can afford to wait as long as you are alive.
Me, I'm speaking about Nancy Kombi, who lost a contract, who can't supply her tomatoes to Serena because there's nobody having breakfast, there's nobody having lunch. But she went and produced, she took out 5 acres on rent.
What would you do for Nancy Kombi?
What?
Now, the challenge of our economy is that the biggest percentage of people are within the informal sector. So to me, what I think Nancy Kombi, because she's not banked, she's paid in cash, she doesn't have a bank account, she can't access a loan. So even if there were tax breaks, she wouldn't benefit anyway. So to me, what I think they should do, people like the Honorable Barunaka, sort of microfinance, because Nancy Kombi, 90% chance she took a loan to plant those tomatoes from a circle within Shotera. So if there is a way government can come up with a fund, an income protection fund, they very small figures, they identify those circles, their members who have taken out loans, and they can trace those members who have actual contracts, whether it is informal, whether it is to supply matoke from Katojo in Imbarara to Kampala, or from Bihar, and this guy brings his matoke every day. This person buys, he has been having this income daily, he takes back to the circle, and finance puts in money into those circles, 100 million. So that it weathers, these people can have income,
Francis
even to plan for the next year.
But Francis also, the tomatoes will be rotten. Why don't we look at what do we do with the tomatoes, with the bananas? Why don't you get somebody from the immediate science and technology, and you tell them, if you put your tomatoes, I see there's certain gentleman in Masindi. He makes very nice, I'm not making a commercial advert, but he makes very good juice from mangoes, and he does pulp when it's in the season, when the mangoes are in season. He gets them, makes pulp, and keeps and makes his juice. Why don't we do that for tomatoes. Why don't we do that for okra? Okra, what I know,
Jen,
they are now cutting it and drying it.
We are talking about
in the immediate.
This person needs to buy a machine. They
do
need
what?
the technical to turn those tomatoes into tomatoes. They need the technical know-how. They need the knowledge. You need to train them. Even if we tell them to go and sun dry, they need the basic knowledge.
Can't we? Okay, why don't we get experts to be able to say this can happen? For
That's
example,
a conversation we can have. That's a conversation we can have.
Take an example like okra. People have been making okra. They are cutting it into pieces and drying it. Have you ever eaten dry okra?
Yes, I have. Yes, sure.
They are drying it.
May I think,
What about
going forward,
other-
Jen, we should be training people into this knowledge, how you can add value right now, so that when you're weathering the storm, post this crisis, they are now thinking on adding value, how UDB is restructuring, coming up with loans, especially for the SME sector. Forget the big guys,
SME
so that
sector.
they can start adding value to their products post. But in the immediate term now, how can we help them survive? So that they can have
Quick
a meal,
fixes.
And
they can feed
fixes.
their children, they can pay their rent. This is the question we have. But can government afford it?
Jen,
You can't.
Jen, there's been so much talk about preparedness on the health front, advising people to wash hands, stay indoors, take a lot of juice. Do you think the economic part has been generally ignored? And how much stake have economists and policy analysts like you had in trying to avert the possible crisis?
There has been a number of discussions and talks around how to revive to handle the economic crisis, which is happening now. We have a health crisis, we have an economic crisis. But again, it goes to what I have been saying about learning lessons. This country, we talk about private sector led. That word is loaded. You hear everybody, we have been telling government, why don't you intervene? Why don't you lower interest rates? It's supply and demand. I'm not an economist, but we tell them government has to intervene. You know, when they talk about private sector led, that our private sector is in the forefront. But where is the private sector? The private sector is very weak. Our private sector, almost 90% are SMEs you are talking about, you know. So when we are looking at averting or handling the economic crisis, government has to take control. We used to have UCB. Today what you are talking about would have been addressed. It would be government to say, UCB, please, all your loans, don't let them not pay today. But you find all the banks are private. They are private. And you know, it goes back also to the debt you are talking about. Our debt today, the government debt, most of it is not with IMF World Bank, the multilateral, the Paris Club. No. And that's where we are going to have a challenge.
For instance, during this crunch time when the entire nation, the entire world is on its knees with this pandemic, where is URA and what best can they do? Because they have targets to meet.
You know, you have to think of, sometimes people blame URA a lot. I don't, because URA is an implementer. They're just implementing policy. So they have, for them, they are there to come and collect, even now, as long as they don't have a government directive or from their supervisor, Minister of Finance, that please defer tax payments, you're going to receive a message to file your provisional returns. So, because for them, they're implementing at the end of the day. But this is the time for government to sit down and URA to start thinking of alternatives. We need to, maybe we copy the Dubai model.
What is in the Dubai model?
In the Dubai model, if you see what now Rwanda is doing, they are moving to MICE. Meetings, incentives, conferences, you know, they are trying to attract all the biggest conferences to the country with the convention center that they built, you understand? So government is earning from there in terms of foreign exchange, tourism. So we need to think, because there are times, for example, I think UTB means they invested about 1.5 million, you know, marketing the country. They had 3 PR firms. The park entry fees of UA, I think, jumped from 60 billion to 150 billion. Collection, park entry fees only, you know. So I think we need to start thinking of different alternatives. So the conversation that people should be having now is, how can we prepare post this debacle to jumpstart the economy better? You know, can we put aside, let's say, 30 million, 3.5, even more, $10 million somewhere, that when this passes, we are marketing the country hard enough so that tourists can come? You know, that is one. Two, how can we help these SMEs bring more people to the tax base? How? So that they grow, especially the underbanked and the underbanked, you know? So it
the unbanked and the
unbanked and the underbanked. How can we bring them into the formal economy, and they can be taxed, they can contribute to the tax base? So it's very important, you know. Okay. So that is one conversation. Another conversation we need to have is associations. This cannot be a government effort alone. The associations, Chamber, PSFU, UZIA, UMA, they need to go out there, go to organizations like Sharjah Chamber of Commerce in UAE, COFAS in Italy, to have a conversation on these people have export credit guarantee facilities. So roofings, what do you need in the medium term, immediately after this post-debate? This is what I need, but I don't have money to pay for it. Okay, whatever savings I had to lay off some employees, maintain the critical employees so that I can pay my loans, I can service my loans. Okay, right. Now what I need in the medium term so that I can hire as much as I can is give me a facility where I can access raw materials cheaply. So you say, okay, can we identify where we can sign MOUs between Chamber of Commerce and maybe Dubai Chamber of Commerce? Because they have export credit guarantee facilities there, you know? So they will tell you, if you're buying from a Dubai company, we are going to give you products 60 days interest-free. Then the Dubai Chamber will pay its exporter, okay, the full value of the invoice. So Chamber here stands for you as roofings, as the guarantor. Okay, so we need now to start. Also, the associations now, they need to move. This is the time they are going to prove to us as members that they can stand in for us. So they need to go out there and look for alternatives, because the government can, I'm telling you, government cannot afford. And these people who are moving around, you know, government should come up with this. Even if they give you a tax break, how many are going to benefit?
Yeah. Maybe on that issue of alternatives, I'm not a spokesperson for Ministry of Finance, but that they have come up with a domestic resource mobilization strategy, very comprehensive regarding those issues, looking for alternatives, broadening the tax base, looking at extractives, how do they get more value from our extractive sector, how to tax the digital economy. So some of those issues are there, you know. So maybe they were anticipating.
For now, do you imagine it would be prudent for government to stop taxing anything as businesses recover from the shocks of coronavirus pandemic?
I know it would be hard even on government, because government also needs resources, because if we are recovering, we need more money to go into the health sector. So where is government going to get that money?
Yeah, but as Siatini, have you taken time, have you sat down to analyze the magnitude of the crisis at hand, or you're just looking on?
No, we have the issues I'm raising here, looking at the post, you know, how to handle, but also the post, what needs to be done to strengthen the economy. We have done that. If you go to our website, we have a paper on that, how to strengthen the economy, what not to do differently. We also have a paper on how to strengthen the health system, the health infrastructure. You see, it's good, I commend government, you know, telling us to wash hands. But you see, those are things which should have been there. When I was growing up, you know, the health sector, right from the village level, was very strong. People had to know that the latrine has to be smoked, smoked and covered. And the local, the natural toilet papers have to be there. The bathroom had to be there. You know, and those are things which a child has to learn, to wash hands. You remember those things where you step, you know, and you wash your hands. Almost all toilets had, latrines had them, you know. So it's naturally ingrained in you that I have to wash hands. So even when we are looking at the health infrastructure, we need to go back to that. right from household level to village level and go on.
For instance, as we take a break, do you think economists have a role to play in drawing a contingency plan to overcome the current challenge coming with COVID?
Yes, it's true. I think we have some of the brightest economists in this country. And they are in finance, they are in Makerere University. So they need to come and sit down on invitation by government, and people sit down.
They don't appear to be on the table at the moment.
So they need to come in on invitation by government. They sit down and they look at this comprehensively. Where do we give a tax break? Where do we give grants? Because it will be a mixture, okay? Who do we give a grant? Who qualifies? Which SME qualifies? Is he a member of a circle? How are we going to collect that money back, even if it's a grant, over a period of time? How can we defer loans? Because it's a problem. We don't own anything. We don't have local banks. We don't have local telecoms. So you're calling, somebody in South Africa is earning on MTN. You're calling on Airtel, somebody in India is earning. So also, how are we going to support now local proper? We take Bubu on a proper ride now.
So this is the silver line.
It is now build by Uganda build. Now we need to start, especially in the wake of this, how are we going to support locally made goods, local innovations to support them to compete with MTN, Airtel, Sheraton, Seren. How are we going to help MS Steel be competitive? So let's say post this, now all government expenditure, if it is a conference, you're supposed to be in a Ugandan-owned hotel, 60% owned. If not, it doesn't pass. Another thing actually out to now, even government in the immediate time, what they can do, they should look at all the budgets of all government MDAs. If you have anything that you're not going to spend this year, because it is the time now, we're almost in the other financial year, June, they recall everything. Now, because there is going to be no external travel now, for parliament, for ministries, there's nothing, no per diem. So all that money, travel budget, finance should call it back now, because it needs it. For health, to help SMEs survive through, because you need business continuity. Who are you going to tax after here if 60% of businesses fail? You tell me.
But are we contending with the dire straits that we're having, or we're still living big as a country?
I have to tell you, sometimes you can't blame these people.
Which people?
In finance, central bank, my friend was arguing yesterday, you can't. They have very little fiscal tools to fight with. Because they also have obligations. The people who lend them money are also now in a crisis. So if they went and said, let us have a conversation around debt rescheduling, deferring payments, they're also saying, my friend, we need the money. We need it also for our economies. So they're also in a catch-22. Now, the other thing is, even this load I'm hearing for World Bank, 100 and something million, it should be a grant. Otherwise, World Bank is not our friend.
Well, Jen, I'm afraid we need to take a very quick break. And when we return, we'll be doing more about what can be done to the distressed business persons throughout the country as they grapple with the challenge coming with COVID-19. We take a break. Welcome back. The discussion continues around the economy in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic that is ravaging the entire world. Well, how best or what decisive actions can government best take, not only government, but all players across board to protect the Ugandan business person or a typical Ugandan from the shocks that come with such disasters? Well, as we continue, during the break we had quite some insightful jokes apparently. We're looking at farmers, business persons who are worst hit, banks. The list continues. Who do you think should be addressed first?
The SME. The SME. I'll tell you why. Okay, let me first start the hand higher before the SME. It was Mother's Day a few days ago, okay? Between buying your mother a basket of food and buying flowers, what would you buy?
Myself?
Yes. In this crisis?
Of course, it's food.
Yes. In America, nobody bought flowers. They all stayed on the supermarket because they saw it prudent that Mother's Day, I rather send a a basket of food to help her survive through the 3 months,
Not
6 months.
chocolates and flowers.
Not chocolates and flowers.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, in this incident, the SME down in the village, the Nancy Kombi we are talking about, okay? Nancy Kombi brought tomatoes. Let me give you her story. She has 1 acre. She rented 4 acres. She went and borrowed money from a circle because Sheraton said, Nancy Kombi, we have given you a contract to supply us tomatoes. We want 100 kilos daily. And she planted in such a way that every week 500 kilos are arriving. So this past month that we are in the crisis, she has had 4 weeks of produce going nowhere. But remember, there's a Nancy Kombi of Serena, there's a Nancy Kombi of Munyonyo, there's a Nancy Kombi. So now all of them where they can take the product is Nakasero. But when she planted, her cost was 100 shillings per tomato to full growth and distributed to Sheraton. Sheraton was paying 200 shillings per tomato. Now, because all the Nancy Kombi supplying to Munyonyo, they are all going now to Nakasero. Now, Mama Jane in Nakasero is saying, Nancy Kombi, I'm giving you 50 shillings. If you don't want, Munange, Sebaduka has. It is even below her production cost. So they are now, she's even now in Masaka saying, why should I come to Kampala? They are rotting in the garden. How are we going to help? And now the people in the circle are saying, Nancy Kombi wants to steal our money. Let us sell the other acre of hers. Okay? We recover our money. Then the Jaja Naru, who gave her the 4 acres on rent, she's also arriving. Nancy Kombi, my money. You know, there's a COVID-19. Now you see Sheraton is not buying the tomatoes. What are you talking about? COVID, they don't understand these things. So now, how are we going to help that person?
The reality is here.
The engine, that person is the actual engine moving the economy. How are we going to get them to survive through this period? Is Haruna Kasoro Microfinance going to come up with a business continuity package to put it into circles where she borrowed the money so that the circle can defer her payment? How are we going to identify those circles? Do we have a mechanism?
Well, it's a crisis. Is it the right time for the country to sit around and rethink tax rebates, tax holidays, breaks, exemptions?
You see, it's. I wanted to go back to what that picture
of
Nancy Kombi. For me, it's really depressing for you, Francis, to say that Nancy Kombi is the engine. You know, you look at the vulnerability, the fragility of our economy. How can you say Nancy Kombi? And that's the reality, by the way. And Nancy Kombi doesn't want a tax rebate because she earns cash, from Serena or Sheraton. She doesn't have a bank account, So how do we get away from that fragility and vulnerability
and
of
Jane,
an economy?
As you explain your point,
what kind of an economy really
between
is that?
Sheraton and Serena? I was surprised. They have 1,000 suppliers. The man who brings eggs, who brings tomatoes, every day, the guy who supplies milk, all those people have laid off workers. They can, because they don't have incomes. Now you tell me.
Jen, again, how does this conversation relate with one of these millennials who are going around? They pick their salary. Are they really going to feel the pinch?
Everybody is going to feel that pinch. Everybody, because even for them, the millennials, their cinemas are closed. That's where they spend maybe their money. They are closed. But what I wanted to go back, to the fragility of as we wind up. And I think Francis talked about it, rethinking the budget, doing reallocations. Again, I don't want to be a spokesperson for Ministry of Trade, but that we are talking about the economy. How do we revive the economy? The Ministry of Trade has an SME directorate. The SME directorate, you can bring them here. But what I want to say, the Ministry of Trade should be the engine should play a key role when it comes to the recovery of the economy. But you see, Ministry of Trade is given 0.4% of the economy, of the budget. It has never gone beyond 0.5. And Ministry of Trade has UDC, has UNBS, has Export Promotion Board to look for markets wherever. They have the district commercial officers down there to tell people, don't grow those tomatoes. This is the market. But 0.4%
of the national budget.
Of the national budget. So this is the rethink and the reallocation of those budgets we are talking about, people not going for travels. We need a rethink of this economy. And the Ministry of Trade, because it's at the center of the economy, has to play a key role.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you, Francis. Is this the time when we can only say everyone for himself?
We are all, unfortunately, if I'm in finance, I would gladly say, business people, let us all share the losses. Let us go through this together.
Sink together.
Because we can't afford it. But, one, NADS. I want to say NADS to Nance Kombi. NADS, give her free seedlings. Give her fertilizer. Help her get access the tractor at the district so that she can grow and she can come out strong.
Thank you very much. Jen, many thanks. Francis, many thanks. Thank you for sharing what the economy should be looking like in the face of such a huge challenge. I remember His Excellency the President is set to speak to the nation at 4 o'clock. What do we expect? It's nothing that I can really unpack for now, but there are toll-free lines for you. In case you suspect anything, you see any case worth reporting, call the Ministry of Health on 0800-100-666. I'll say this again, 0800-100-066 or 0800-203033. Well, that's all I had for you. We'll keep you up to speed with everything happening in and around the country during such critical moments. Good morning.